Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. We also got the Swag Cave, brought to you by Resonance Branding Company. That link is in our podcast description, so check it out. Get your swag over there. On this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, we're going to talk a little Brewers. Big series coming up with the Dodgers, but also a big stretch of games coming up for the crew. That's coming up in the second half of this episode. But we're going to lead things off with this episode talking a little football now that we've got more preseason games in the books and the first preseason game for the Packers. So let's lead off talking a little football. Packers' first preseason game in the books. Taking down the Cleveland Browns, because that's all we care about is the score, right? 23-10? No. We don't care about the score when it comes to preseason games. Main thing is that we hope nobody gets hurt, and we look at individual performances and maybe some collective, performances like offensive line, defensive line, that sort of stuff. But, to kind of go back to the game, Jordan Love and a lot of the starters on offense only played 3 plays. It took 3 plays for them to score a touchdown. It was the long pass to Dontavian Wicks by Jordan Love on third down to, 63-yard? Yeah, 63-yard catch and run by 65-yard. 65-yard catch and run by Dontavian Wicks to give the Pack an early 7-0 lead, and they would never look back after that. But what were some of the other positives and negatives? And I'm not going to really throw Jordan Love into this one because it was just 3 plays. And I know kind of one of his knocks is the accuracy on the deep ball, and that was a deep ball and such, but just a couple plays for him. So he's not on my positive list and such. But I'll go over some of the positives for me. And actually I have a couple more positives than negatives on this list. But I'm going to start off with Emmanuel Wilson, running back. I mean, last year he broke out on the scene in preseason, got himself a job, and first preseason game, what does he do? Carries the ball for 13 times, 67 yards, 5.2 average. Long 23, thanks to Michael Pratt, leading with the lead block on one of those runs. But Emmanuel Wilson, is making the case again that he should have a job on this team. We know Josh Jacobs is going to be the starting back. They drafted Marshawn Lloyd. A.J. Dillon's back. A.J. Dillon looks slim, too. I'm going to get to A.J. Dillon here in a little bit. But Emmanuel Wilson still trying to make the case like, hey, I'm still here. I can still run. I can still make some plays. So I thought he had a nice game on Saturday. Staying with the offense, Grant Dubose, 5 catches, 66 yards on 6 targets. And, he got some playing time right away in this preseason game, and I thought he took big-time advantage of it. He stood out to me. Guy last year that, he was a 5th-round pick, 7th-round pick, late pick. And did see him get on the field and such. Apparently he's been having, from all reports, if you've been following along with camp and such, he's had a nice camp in that. And that transitioned on the field. I mean, this is why preseason games matter. I know we're not, a lot of you aren't the biggest fans, but this is why it matters for guys like Grant Dubose to go out there and showcase that they deserve to have a job, that they deserve to be on a 53-man roster. And he did that in his first game. And when we look at the back end of this receiving core, again, depending on how many receivers the Packers end up keeping, I don't think they have a specific number in mind right now. I think they got a range, and then they see how it's going to work out when it comes down to cut day. But we know the top 4. It's Christian Watson, it's Romeo Doubs, it's Jaden Reed, and it's Dontavian Wicks. Those are locks. Now the question is how many do they keep after that? Do they keep 1 more? Do they keep 2 more? Do they go up to 7? That's why it's important for guys like Grant Dubose to go out there and have performances like they did on Saturday, to show what they're doing in practice and translating it to the field, or transitioning it to the field. Doing exactly what they're doing on practice, doing it during a preseason game. He had himself a good game. And if we were to do a power ranking of some of the back-end receivers, you throw in Malik Keith, you throw in Bo Melton on there, you throw in Toure on there, I think Grant is probably number one right now. Staying with the offense, Michael Pratt, the rookie quarterback. You know, Sean Clifford got the majority of the time in there. He was 10 of 19, buck 11. Michael Pratt only threw 7 times, but he was 5 of 7 for 46 yards. I know it was nothing like big shining moments or anything besides the lead block for the run play. But for the rookie, I was impressed for his limited stuff. I thought he had a good showing out there. Now, I don't know how up in the air this backup quarterback battle is. I still think it's going to be Clifford. But I got to give Michael Pratt credit. I thought it was a nice game. I thought it was a nice positive game. So thumbs up to him. Again, I don't know if there's going to be a real battle between him and Clifford. I mean, Clifford is more than likely, I would put like a 95% chance he's going to be the backup. But Pratt, maybe next year is when he's going to be that main backup to Jordan Love. I thought he had a nice game. I thought Lucas Van Ness had a nice game too. Made a couple nice plays, put some pressure on the quarterback a few times. Again, if you follow practice reports, I was reading over the weekend a little bit from Matt Schneidman that said he based on average, it's like he makes a play per practice, and he made a couple of those in the game. This is a guy that I think a lot of us have been wondering, is he going to be a better performer with his hand in the dirt, with his new defense, playing a more prototypical 4-3? Is he going to be a guy that is going to be making that year 2 jump, making that sophomore jump? I thought he had a nice performance. On Saturday. He looked comfortable, a lot more comfortable with his hand in the dirt and going after the quarterback. And I thought the offensive line, the offensive line is a group that has come under fire a little bit here in the early parts of training camp. The depth. We haven't seen, Zach Tom's at practice, but he's still recovering from injury. Jordan Morgan is missing some time. He didn't play in the game dealing with a shoulder injury. But I thought for all the different combinations that was thrown out in that game, guys playing, one position on one series, and the next series they're playing a different one. For all the different combinations that was thrown out there, I thought for the most part the offensive line did a solid job. A lot of guys stepping up and played well. Andre Dillard, I think, is probably the leader in the clubhouse for that swing tackle spot right now, the veteran. Sean Ryan, I thought, there was a couple plays there too. Was it one of Emmanuel Wilson's run towards the goal line? You had Emmanuel Wilson pushing the big man or having his hand on his back and leading the way, getting out in space and leading the way with the blocking charge there. I thought Sean Ryan had a nice game. But overall, the offensive line, for as much scrutiny that they've been getting and talk about, depth, do they have adequate depth? Do they have good depth? I thought the offensive line was solid in their performance. Maybe feel a little bit better of where they're at this point in time. So those were some of my thumbs up from the game. Now my thumbs down. A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon, now, he didn't have a ton of opportunities. I will say this. He didn't have a ton of opportunities in the game. But in his limited opportunities, in those short yardage situations, he didn't perform. He didn't get it done. Now, was it all him? Was it the blocking up front? A.J. Dillon, he looks like he's in really good shape. looks like he's lost weight, but apparently he hasn't lost weight. He's just cut down like his fat, like his percentage fat is down, more muscle on there, but he looks slimmer, he looks quicker, but in those short yardage situations, not able to pick up first downs, and that's where his bread and butter has to be. That's where it has to be for A.J. Dillon. Short yardage situations, hand it off to the quad master and pick up that first down. And I was a little disappointed for that. Again, didn't have a ton of opportunities. So I don't know if his job is really on the line because he was pulled fairly quick in that game. I'd be curious to see what his snap count looks like coming up in Denver and for these next 2 preseason games. But I don't think it was the type of outing that we were hoping, or maybe A.J. Dillon was hoping and such, because when you look at the running backs, we know Jacobs is the guy. Emmanuel Wilson had himself a game, and then they invested a pick in Marshawn Lloyd. But what might help A.J. Dillon is my other negative in this game, and that's Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd, we didn't get to see a ton from him, and he ended up leaving the game due to a hamstring injury. Had a carry for 8 yards, but and he wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't going to get released or stashed on the practice squad because somebody was going to pick him up. But to have a hamstring injury after your first preseason game, now he's going to be missing some time. He's going to be missing some valuable time. And if you're watching the telecast and such, and you kind of heard, I believe it was Kuhn talking about this with, talking about what Matt LaFleur had to say about about Lloyd. And, there were some fumble issues in college and that, and they just want to get him more work to where he's feeling comfortable, and especially in the passing game and that. He's not going to get that work now. I don't know the severity of the hamstring injury, but it's a running back with a hamstring injury. That tends to not, be a quick turnaround over there. So what may help guys like Emmanuel Wilson and A.J. Dillon now is that I'm assuming Lloyd is going to be out for a little bit here as he recovers from that hamstring injury. So it was a downer. I was excited to see Marshawn Lloyd in this game. I was excited to see kind of his big play potential, his big play ability, and wasn't out there too long. So that was a little disappointing. My other disappointment, or thumbs down, I'm going to go Bo Melton. Bo Melton had a couple drops in this game. Yes, were some of the throws behind him? They were, but they're definitely catchable balls. They were in traffic over the middle of the field. But for a guy who, again, is in that battle, in that wide receiving, position battle there, to have a couple drops, that's not going to bode well for you. It doesn't necessarily matter what you did last year. And Bo Melton had a fantastic run at the end of the season there, becoming the first Packer to have over 100 yards. Okay? I get that. I understand that. But the thing is that it's what are you going to do for me lately? And when you look at the back end of this wide receiving depth, Bo Melton didn't really establish himself or solidify his stance on there. Especially when you talk about Grant DuBose having a really good game. You look at those final couple spots. It's between Grant, it's between Bo, it's between Malik Heath, and the other guy that's a little bit of a downer for me is Toure. Samori Toure. Couple targets just for him, one catch for 8 yards. He's got to stand out. We got to see him pop out on film with some of these games. If it were me, if I were just to wager a guess, I think the Packers keep 6 wide receivers. We know the top 4: Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, Reed. I think they keep 6, and right now, I think the 2 that they keep is going to be Grant and is going to be Malik Heath. And I think they keep Malik Heath for part of it because he does a lot of the dirty work. He's a good blocker on the outside. Little Alan Lazard-esque, not as big as Alan Lazard, but he's a willing and he's a solid blocker on the outside. And then maybe They bring back Bo, and maybe he can get stashed on the practice squad there. But I think for a guy like Toure, time might be out on him. Just not seeing enough of him to warrant a roster spot right now. It's a competitive room. It's a very competitive room. So I missed out on one positive I want to throw out here too. And that was rookie Evan Williams, the safety out of Oregon. Bullard got the start next to Xavier McKinney. But Evan Williams, I thought, played incredibly well, showed a lot out there. And what's going to be interesting, I think, maybe a storyline or maybe something to kind of follow throughout the regular season, is to see how this secondary group kind of plays out the nickel packages. Because if you remember, if you go back to the draft, when the Packers drafted Bullard and Evan Williams, some of the talk out there, some of the draft experts, some of the scouts out there said these are guys that can play slot corner, nickel corner. They're safety, but they can kind of come up and play that. It'll be interesting. Right now, Keyshawn Nixon is that guy, but the way Evan Williams is playing and the way Bullard is playing, if you want to get those guys on the field at the same time, and if they're a better option at that nickel spot, at that slot spot, could we see at times where Bullard and Williams are on the field with Xavier McKinney, but one of them is playing that slot corner, is playing that nickel corner over there? I just kind of keep it in the back here. Now, Keyshawn's got a big contract, and that's going to help, keep him out on the field in that. And I think a lot of it is probably based off his returnability. But maybe something to kind of follow out there a little bit, to kind of follow along with the two rookie safeties out there. But I thought Evan Williams, again, solid game from him. And this safety group's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I thought Anthony Johnson Jr. had a good game too. Second-year guy. It's going to be fun watching the rest outside of Xavier McKinney. I mean, you want to talk about these youngsters having a perfect kind of mentor or a guy to watch and learn from. I mean, these guys get Xavier McKinney in the room with them. I mean, I think that's gonna prove to be such a positive thing for these young rookies. So, but those were kind of my thumbs up, thumbs down from the first preseason game. In terms of the kicking, well, kickers, Greg Joseph and Anders Carlson didn't really get tested that much. So, no clear front runner in that thing. But in terms of the kickoff, man, it's gonna take a little bit for me to get used to that. It's gonna take a little bit for me to get used to that, to get adjusted to that. Now, we didn't get to see like Keyshawn Nixon really in full mode over that way. I know we saw like Wilson and Toure and that, but I guess I want to see it in the regular season when we got the main guys out there. But I mean, you're talking about, and I think it was Harlan that mentioned it after the Browns picked up their field goal in their first drive. With the new kickoff rules, I mean, there's going to be times where teams are going to have really good starting field position because you got to get in that landing zone and then you get a return. I mean, for some of the kickers now, that team might only need, 10, 15 yards, 20 yards, and they're already in field goal position? So, I mean, you're putting really a lot of extra pressure on opposing defenses with that kicking game. If that kicking game can't be accurate, you can't get in the landing zone, you can't get that coverage unit down there right away, you're already starting off in really good field position and kind of putting a little stress on that defense. All right, let's take a quick break, and we are going to talk some Brewers coming up after these quick words. We're getting set for another busy travel season, vacations, taking our kids to all their games and activities, and you need a proper vehicle to get you to where you're going and safely. That's where Toyson Ford can help you. Toyson Ford will go the extra mile to provide you with compelling options for new and used car shopping. They will gladly work with you on financing no matter what your budget may be. They're committed to giving drivers across the Chippewa Valley the best in customer service. Check them out for yourself. Visit Toyson Ford in Chippewa Falls today and check out their website, toysonford.net. Summer is in full swing. Are you stocked up and prepared? With the kids staying home this summer, family vacations planned, and ball games to go to, your pantries and cupboards are probably looking a bit bare these days. Save money and stock up this summer by doing your shopping at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Not only will you be able to get the best deals on the best items in the area, you can do some extra savings with Hy-Vee's fuel perks. Save money on groceries and gas. That's a win-win situation. So what are you waiting for? Get the shopping at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire today. Brew Crew picking up another series win, taking 2 out of 3 against the Reds. Their lone loss coming yesterday in DL Hall's first appearance since back in April for DL Hall. DL Hall is going to be an interesting player to see how the Brewers utilize him for the last couple months or so. He got the start yesterday, going 4 2/3. Did strike out 9. He did strike out 9, 3 walks, three earned runs over there too. Did give up a home run, but for a kid, for a guy that we haven't seen since April, I thought it was a solid outing from him. I did, but it's going to be interesting to see as we get closer to the postseason how the Brewers utilize him, because he was so instrumental to Baltimore coming out of the bullpen last year down the stretch and into September. Could the Brewers kind of go a similar route, even though they still want to develop him as a starter? Because, he throws 4 really good pitches, so it'll be interesting to see, how it continues here. But for now, I got to imagine he's going to continue to be, coming out or being a part of the starting rotation over there. So good to see DL Hall back in the lineup and getting the starts yesterday. So, but the Brewers, the big picture, they did take 2 out of 3 against the Reds. They did win this series. Going back to Friday's game, Aaron Civale, that was a dude that we were talking about on Friday. We've been talking about for a while. We want to see some improvement from. We want to see some better outings from. And he had that Friday. Now, let's start to stack success. Let's start to put together a string of good starts here. Not just at one every few starts here. Let's see some consistency with this thing. This is his first win in, seems like forever. But he went 6 1/3, giving up just a couple earned runs, striking out 5. You got to tip your cap. Finally, easily his best outing as a Brewer in his short term as a Brewer since, when he was acquired at the beginning of July there. But now let's start to see back-to-back starts of Aaron Civale being a consistently good starter in this rotation here. And let's make things interesting because, again, I think your top 4 starters right now, if the postseason were to start, it's Freddie, it's Colin Ray, it's Tobias Myers, and then maybe it's Frankie on there, or a combination of, I think it's a battle for that 4th one. Is it Frankie? Is it Civale? Is it going to be DL Hall? Where's that other starter gonna come from? But I think maybe the better question, or the better answer in this whole thing, your top 3 right now is Freddie, is Colin Ray, and Tobias Myers in any particular order that you want to throw into. Freddie's probably going to get the game 1 start, but who knows? But Tobias Myers on Saturday, we've been talking about him since June, because that's kind of when things really seem to have kicked into gear with Tobias Myers. And he doesn't get a decision in his game on Saturday. He had a little bit of a pitching duel going back and forth between Martinez and Tobias Myers. But Tobias Myers went 7 1/3, giving up just 3 hits, no walks, and 9 strikeouts. Didn't issue a walk. Tobias Myers, I mean, you want to talk about guys who have really stepped up this year, and other players, I mean, there's been a bunch of players who have really stepped up and taken advantage of their opportunities this year, or have really showcased what they can bring to the table. We were talking about Jackson Shearer. We've talked about other players, and we've talked about Tobias Myers a little bit here too. But what he has done this year, especially since June, has been pretty impressive. You go back, I mean, he finished the month again, June, 4-0, 1.44 ERA. Okay? Fantastic. July, 1-2, still 2.70 ERA. You take out his July 4th game, Colorado, where he went 6 and 4 earned runs. 3 other starts, 3 total earned runs. And in his first couple starts here in the month of August, he's 0-1, but the one loss against Washington, 1 earned run, it was a home run there. But .73 ERA in 2 starts so far in the month of August. Man, a lot of, again, I don't want to look too far in the future, because this team has a chance to do some impressive stuff this year. But you look at the future of this young starting rotation, assuming Tobias Myers continues to play at the level he has. If Robert Gasser comes back and kind of picks up where he left off, we'll see how DL Hall continues to get better. You got Jacob Mizorowski, who's in AAA. I mean, the young, talented starting pitchers that this team has for the next few years here is going to be, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It really is. But Tobias Myers, now when you look at his last 11 starts, he has just a 1.75 ERA. 1.75 ERA in his last 11 starts. Overall on the season, 2.79 with a whip of a 1.08. Just another youngster, another rookie with a fantastic performance. And hopefully this guy can continue to do it, not, throughout the rest of this season and into the postseason, because if the Brewers get to the postseason, don't want to jinx or anything, but if they get to the postseason, he's going to be a guy that is going to be a crucial part and a crucial player to hopefully the Brewers winning a series and making a nice deep run into the postseason here. But looking at this series coming up here with the Dodgers, I mean, you want to talk about potential implications all across the National League. Now, if they split it or whatever happens, might not be a whole lot of movement, might not mean a whole lot in terms of a lot of stuff, but this is where potentially things could get really interesting depending on how this Brewers series goes between the Dodgers. Because the Brewers are just a couple games back from both the Dodgers and the Phillies from being the top team, the team in the National League with the most wins. Maybe that's flying under the radar a little bit. Maybe that kind of surprises a lot of people. Phillies are sitting there at 69-49. Dodgers, 69-49. And then you got the Brewers, 67-50. Oh, by the way, the Brewers have a higher run differential than the Dodgers and the Phillies. Get this. You ready for something crazy? The team in the National League with the biggest run differential is the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers are the team with the highest run differential, plus 106. 106. In fact, looking at this, there is only one other team in all of Major League Baseball that is over 100. and that would be the New York Yankees plus 117. Now, I know run differential isn't the metric of all metrics, or the stats of all stats. It's one of my favorite ones. Especially, basketball has a similar one. But when we've looked at it over the years here, and we've talked about, one of the weaknesses for the Brewers has been, kind of the offense and such, right? It's been an issue. You go back back to 2022, okay? When the Brewers were 86 and 76, they had a plus 37 run differential. That was 2022. Go back to last year, 2023, got better. They weren't the highest in their own division, though. They were a plus 81. The Cubs had a plus 96. The Atlanta Braves were just a crazy plus 231. Dodgers had a plus 207. So, we still got a little over a quarter of the way through the season, but right now, the team with the highest run differential in the National League is the Milwaukee Brewers. For crying out loud. We'll see if they can add on. We'll see if things can change with this series against the Dodgers. But going back to where this series is so intriguing in terms of, Major League Baseball and the standings, if things go just absolutely fantastic for the Brewers, maybe we have a changing of the guard for the top team in the National League in terms of wins. Philadelphia is struggling right now. They've lost their last 3. They struggled against Arizona. They're 4-6 in their last 10, but they got Miami coming up now, so maybe a nice reset for Philly. But Milwaukee has a chance to put themselves at the top here. And outside of Brewers fans, there is no bigger fan for the Milwaukee Brewers than both the Diamondbacks and Padres. Diamondbacks and Padres fans are probably the second biggest Brewers fans for this series. Because the NL West all of a sudden has gotten pretty dang interesting. With how well the Diamondbacks and the Padres are playing right now. Both teams 8-2 in their last 10. These two teams are just 3.5 games back from the Dodgers. Just 3.5 back from the Dodgers. It'd be a little bit closer if the Dodgers haven't won their last 3. But when you look at the schedule, and I know it's baseball and anything can happen, and you don't know really what to expect going into a series and such all the time. Dodgers are on the road against Milwaukee. Diamondbacks and Padres, well, they're both home, and the Diamondbacks play Colorado, and the Padres play Pittsburgh. So you see why the Diamondbacks and the Padres may be huge Brewers fans coming into this series, too, because if the Brewers do something pretty darn fantastic, let's say win this series, things get really tight in the NL West. Potentially. Diamondbacks and Padres still got to do their own thing, right? They still got to take care of their business. But this is where you got a couple of things to be watching here. Brewers, could they climb up into the top spot in the National League or one of the top 2 spots in the National League? If they win this series, if they do some damage in this series, how does it affect the NL West race at this point? But the overall picture for this series with the Dodgers coming up is this is a test for the Brewers. Again, another litmus test. Can they beat the best teams in Major League Baseball? It goes back to a couple months ago, the quote from Christian Yelich. I think it was after the Phillies series. We could play with them, but we got to learn to beat them. They can make things close. They can hang with them. But can you beat them? And earlier in the season, when they played Philadelphia and they played the Dodgers, they were on the road. And at that point, kind of the positive outlook was, all right, would that series be, or would those series be different if they were in Milwaukee? Because Milwaukee was playing really well at home. And right now they're 11 games above 500 at home. They're 33-22. Well, here's your chance. Yeah, you don't have Christian Yelich right now, but your pitching is lined up. Probably the best you could ask for. Throwing out Freddie and Colin Ray and Frankie and Tobias. I mean, those are probably the 4 that you want to throw out in this series. Here you go. Here's your test. You get the Dodgers at home. Really isn't any more excuses. Show that you can be one of the best teams in all of Major League Baseball. Show you can do this. This is a hell of a stretch coming up for the Brewers to really, I think, establish themselves. And, you know, if they want to make some noise across Major League Baseball, whether it's from other teams or fan bases or national media, here's your chance. Here's the chance to shut up some of the doubters, to quiet some of the doubters, and to really maybe build a lot of confidence, even more. I think this team has a lot of confidence, but even maybe solidify some of that confidence within your own building. These 4 games against the Dodgers, then 3 against Cleveland, and then on the road against St. Louis. Hell of a stretch, but a chance to really, I think, really solidify and make some noise across Major League Baseball. This is what you wanted this time of year in August. You're up 7.5 in the division. You're one of the best teams in the National League. Just a couple games out maybe from that top spot. And here you go. You want to get a little postseason action. You want to get a little bit of a taste of what maybe postseason baseball tastes like, especially with these youngsters on this team, with these rookies. Well, here you go. Here's your stretch of games right now. And you get to be at home for 7 of these 10 games. Take advantage of it. Use it. I can't wait. I cannot wait for these games to get going here. No off days until next Monday when they hit the road. So this week's going to be a grind. It's going to be an absolute grind with these games against the Dodgers in Cleveland. But I can't wait. This is going to be a little taste of October. October baseball. Let's go, crew. Here you go. Here's your shot. Here's your chance to maybe, if there are some doubters out there, to silence those doubters, to silence those haters. Let's go. It's all in front of you right now, baby. All right, that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Again, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. And don't forget to check out that Swag Cave done by Resonance Branding Company. Appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.